The place of leadership. On April 17, 2022, I happened to be on a very turbulent flight to Owerri from Abuja on one of Nigeria's largest airlines. It was raining cats and dogs. After several efforts to land at Owerri Airport, we made a detour to Port Harcourt International Airport for safety. It was so turbulent that the plane was thrown into a prayer home of sorts. Kids wailing, Muslims and Christians alike calling on God to spare our lives. The prayer warning from the captain about the impending turbulence did nothing to assuage our fears. It was so intense that the captain at some point had to shout to the cabin crew, "Turbulence, turbulence, turbulence." Then he continued to update the passengers so that they would stop panicking. He maneuvered the plane through the thick clouds and rainstorm, and we literally had an emergency landing in Port Harcourt. Fantastic Nigerian pilot as always. He subsequently made announcement that it was a stopover and the flight will proceed to Owerri after the rain. The announcement fell on deaf ears. Immediately the plane door was opened, nearly all the passengers ran out in the rain. They were no longer interested in the trip. They would rather continue in the rain by road and risk all the way instead of flying to Owerri. What was very interesting for me was that the captain remained calm all through, providing information on the efforts in the flight deck for the safety of all passengers. We were all thinking about our individual safety, but our collective safety was the concern of this pilot. That's leadership. The buck stopped on his table, and he could not afford to let anything slip. I read for the uptenth time the 5th century BC story of the Pharaoh that made Joseph prime minister in Egypt. The story depicted great leadership responsibility that is worthy of note. Some officers of the food and beverage unit of the palace failed in their duties to the king. And what the king did was to jail the leaders, not the officers that caused the problem. He jailed the chief butler and the chief baker. He did not jail the ordinary people in that section who actually committed the service failures. In fact, one of the leaders was eventually sentenced to death. Very sad. But that's responsibility. And it is surely the bedrock of leadership. The greatest of the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership taught by John C. Maxwell is the law of the lead. The lead is the cap or cover, and the summary of the law is that everything rises or falls on leadership. The 5th century Pharaoh's account sounded draconian, but it is because the king understood this law very well. He knew that the best way to gain efficiency is to hold leaders accountable. If you're a football fan like me and you have a favorite team, you'll observe something that is always synonymous with the sack of your team's coach. It is each time the team is not doing well. This is same for corporations. When the business is not doing well, they simply appoint a new CEO. That's leadership. It is most efficient to change a system from the top. Again, I say, the top. That's leadership. Unfortunately, the leader comes from the people. A people who do not see the premium in leadership will likely not work on developing their leadership skills. If we have postulated that everything rises and falls on leadership, we're invariably saying that when a family, business, corporation, or agency is not strategically raising leaders, they also will not raise their level of performance. It is leadership first, before efficiency, and then performance. The subject of leadership is so broad that it cannot be exhaustively examined in one single episode of the place. However, it is so critical to a successful life that we must keep highlighting aspects of it. Imagine for a moment if the captain on the April 17 flight was also shouting prayers in exasperation like the passengers. It would have been an emotional disaster for the passengers, who expect him to rise to the occasion by doing what he is responsible for. Expectedly, he took responsibility, focused on solving the problem, directed the crew, and gave information to the passengers as we progressed. I am glad that eventually the rainstorm ended, the plane flew to Owerri and landed safely. But just a few passengers remained until the Owerri leg. Despite the long day, the captain also waited for all to disembark and stepped out from the plane last after the challenging but fulfilling flight. That is what is expected from all of us as leaders in our own sphere of influence. It is that we realize that the buck stops on our table. Next is to recognize that our efficiency level cannot be better than our leadership level. And then to live a life built on the acceptance of the responsibility reposed on us as leaders. And live daily with the mindset that we either deliver on those responsibilities or be failures. Remember, nothing will change around you until you change.